Good morning. Welcome into Let's Bet It here on Pickswise and Pickswise.com, presented by Superbook Sports. I'm Mark Zeno, joined by Jared Smith. Please make sure you guys download the Pickswise app on Apple Store or Google Play and subscribe to the Pickswise YouTube channel. Let us know what comments and games you're on. We'll try to get to them all before the end of the show. Tom Byrne, Mad Dog Radio, going to join us on the show to talk some Major League Baseball, some NFL as well. Jared, welcome in on this Wednesday morning. Hope all is well on your end, and hope you had a profitable week so far.
Yeah, I haven't done much this week. Hit the Browns on Monday night, which was nice. Last night, I would say an average pick with the Nerfy. We got Ranger Suarez through the top of the first, which I thought was going to be the bigger concern there. And then Lance McCullers was Meatball McCullers last night. I mean, he was just serving them up like South Philly style. The Phillies, man, I mean, I'll be honest. It's obvious right now. It's pretty hard to say that they're not going to win the World Series based off of the momentum, and they got two more games at home. So they're partying. Has you ever seen? I mean, I don't remember a time in Philly where the sports were this good. It's really been a fun couple of weeks, couple of months, really, for the Philly fans.
Well, with all due respect to my friends and loved ones in the Philadelphia area, Philly is one of those cities that doesn't need to win more. Trust me, they don't handle it well.
Hard to argue.
So, we got a lot to get to today, including the NFL trade deadline. We'll look at some college football key games as well. Of course, our plays of the day before the end of the show. But it was the busiest deadline in NFL history. 10 deals made yesterday on deadline day. Wow. That's the most of any NFL deadline day deals in the history of the league. So some of them smaller moves, but the big ones certainly getting all the headlines, and starting with Bradley Chubb headed to the Miami Dolphins as the Broncos will get Chase Edmonds, a first-round pick next year's draft, a fourth-round pick in 2024. The Dolphins get Bradley Chubb and a 2025 fifth-round pick. So this is the kind of move that shores up a Dolphins defense that's been a little bit shaky as of late. We know their offense is high-powered, but this Bradley Chubb may be the kind of player that changes things for that Dolphins defense.
Yeah, Chubb right now graded out 19th out of 126 edge rushers in the NFL. So, I mean, he's a top-tier talent, and that's exactly what the Dolphins were lacking. They haven't generated a ton of pass rush this year. Jalen Phillips has 4 sacks, and the rest of the entire edge rusher group for Miami has 2 combined. Emmanuel Ogbah's on track to have a career-worst season. Melvin Ingram's only played in about 50% of the snaps. So they really needed a boost in that area. And if you were going to ask me a missing link, and it's kind of interesting because you think about Mike McDaniel's, strategy, he kind of plays up and down to the level of opponent he's facing. Like last week, kind of let the Lions, they let them kind of jump out to that big lead. And then you saw the Miami offense really kick it into high gear. I think what this trade does, it allows Mike McDaniels to play from the front foot from the start, because if you give that defense a lead now with 2 really good pass rushers, Phillips, and you throw Chubb into the mix, it allows, a little more edge pressure to come because, hey, teams behind, they're going to be passing. So I think this move not only is obviously adding a great player, but it allows Mike McDaniel, I think, to be much more hyper-aggressive early in the game. He'll feel more comfortable getting out to an early lead and then letting that pass rush kind of do its thing in the fourth quarter. Obviously, you always want to have a lead, but I do think this is the most impactful move we saw yesterday in terms of a win probability increasing for a team to go to the playoffs, make a deep run, et cetera, et cetera.
One of the most surprising moves from yesterday is the Detroit Lions traded away TJ Hawkinson within the division to the Minnesota Vikings. Now, they paid a premium for it as they get a 2023 second-round pick and a 2024 third-round pick, the Lions do. And along with Hawkinson, the Vikings will get a 2023 fourth and a 2024 conditional fourth. But, I guess Irv Smith not working out in Minnesota, but to add to the list of pass catchers that the Vikings already have, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, now you add Hawkinson into the mix. Kirk Cousins has weapons galore.
Yeah, he's always had weapons. That's never been the issue, right? It's about this in the big moments on the big stage and how he, utilizes those weapons. Obviously, Minnesota got better yesterday. The draft compensation, we'll see what it means in a few years. There's obviously some future picks involved that we have no idea what this trade really is going to look like for at least a couple of seasons. So I don't really have a whole lot of confidence in a tight end being the missing link for Minnesota. They're better, and maybe they're a little more balanced on offense because Irv Smith is hurt. They didn't really have a pass-catching tight end, but I don't really have a lot of confidence in saying, yep, that's the missing link. Minnesota's a contender now. I think they're kind of the same team they were yesterday with just a little more explosiveness on offense.
All right, one more here, Jared, and maybe one of those moves that could be a missing piece for the Baltimore Ravens as they get Roquan Smith for backup linebacker A.J. Klein, a 2023 second-round pick and a 2023 fifth-round pick, so a second and a fifth headed back to Chicago. Ravens get the middle linebacker they so desperately needed with an underperforming Patrick McQueen and Patrick Queen. I'm thinking of Lightning.
You're watching too many Pixar movies.
Yeah, that's the problem there. Either way, nobody's playing good at middle linebacker for the Ravens. So they get Roquan Smith in there, and he's exactly the kind of player I think the Ravens need.
Yeah, this is another one. It's kind of ironic that both of the big moves yesterday, I thought, impact-wise, came on defense. This one, really, you could tell, you kind of tipped their hand, the Ravens, and how they feel about Patrick Queen, who was a first-round pick, like 2 years ago? So, that's a pretty quick, move away from a guy that was expected to be a Ray Lewis kind of prototype guy, a staple of that Ravens defense when they drafted him in the first round. I love the move. I love the aggression. I think it shows how Baltimore feels about their chances of making a run this year with Lamar Jackson, because they gave up a little bit of draft capital here. He gave up a second-round pick. You only drafted Queen. He was a late first-round pick. So they pretty much traded, for the most part, a little bit of gap there. We'll see where the Ravens pick in the second round, but a pretty high pick for this kid. So I love that move. I think it makes the Ravens better, but I still think the Ravens will go as far as Lamar Jackson's arm and legs will take them this year.
I'm sure privately the Ravens were wishing that they had re-signed Zadarius Smith and not let him walk in free agency. Different conversation, though, but you see all that were made. And it's pure indicator. Ravens, Eagles, Niners, these are teams that are going all in here at the deadline to give themselves the best chance to win. Speaking of going all in, let's bring in our guest, Tom Byrne from Mad Dog Radio, as he joins us to go over the NFL and NBA. And we welcome him in here to Let's Bet It on Pickswise and Pickswise.com. Tom, good morning and welcome. Get your reactions to the trade deadline before we get into the games for today and the rest of the week.
Yeah, not an awful lot. I mean, bottom line is it's a fun day. I remember when the NFL trade deadline was a bore, right, guys? It's never going to be like the NBA where you got stars really changing the equation and you got to go ahead and look at your power rankings, downgrade one team, upgrade the next. You could do that a little. Look, I love Bradley Chubb too, and there's some guys who are going to be impactful. I like what Philadelphia did earlier in the week. And by the way, I heard your slight mark on Philly. I love the fact that the Mets gag like the gaggers they are. I love that the Yankees are out. It's been since 2009. I love that the Jets and the Giants, those frauds, were finally exposed for what they are. So, listen, jealousy is not a good look, my friend. Jealousy is not a good look. But no, getting back to the point. Eagles earlier in the week got a little depth in the pass rush. So I thought it was interesting. I kind of like that. I don't know if I want to call them fireworks. I kind of like at least we have a reason to reload Twitter every once in a while and see what's going on.
I will be sure to report your comments to Steve Cohen, as us Long Island boys stick together quite well. So,
they know. You could tell Cohen. You could tell Spitz. Doggy will agree with me. I'll tell you that much.
The New York teams, it's been interesting. That's for sure. Sorry, go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
No, we get big news in the NBA of the firing of Steve Nash. Finally, get him out of his misery, for crying out loud. This thing has gone sideways faster than anything I've seen in sports, given the level of names and talent that have been there. This was a quick execution, all things considered. But what do you make of this? And is it realistic to think that Ime Udoka could be let out of his contract and, I guess, traded to the Brooklyn Nets to go coach there?
I suppose it is. Let's start with Steve Nash. I mean, here's a guy who thought he had Durant, Harden, Kyrie, and that thing just blew up. Now, listen, we all remember the Milwaukee game where Kevin Durant's shoe size was one size too big. Who knows what happens, but we can't play that hypothetical game. Harden sees the writing on the wall. You got Kyrie taking weeks off because it's his birthday. He wants to act like he's this social media warrior, and James Harden was turned off. Bottom line is it's just been a mess. I mean, the vibes are terrible. Kevin Durant in the offseason made it even more comfortable. Steve Nash has to be the most relieved man in the world. He's still going to get paid. Yeah. He'll be on an island somewhere. He'll be fine. Listen, Ime Udoka, they'll work it out. He'll probably end up in Brooklyn. I don't know exactly what he did in Boston. Obviously, it's not good. He's a hell of a coach. Now, I never bought this idea that somehow the Celtics were going to be a mess because they lost their coach. I mean, they had an entire training camp with the new staff. Stylistically speaking, they're going to be the same team. My power rankings have Boston easily the best team in the league. I didn't downgrade them a little bit with the loss of Udoka. That's not to say that Udoka can't coach, though. And just the change in vibe, the change in culture will probably be a good thing for the Nets. Think about the Phillies, in all seriousness, when they got rid of Girardi. We all knew the Phillies were better than a 20-28 team. Look at their run differential. But they needed to change the vibes, change the culture a little bit. They had an easier schedule coming up, and obviously it paid dividends. Now, I don't know that the Nets are going to the NBA Finals, but they'll be a much improved team with Ime Udoka. So I still think you got to put the Nets somewhere in the top 4 in the East, but they got work to do, to say the least.
Yeah, I don't think the Nets are going anywhere as long as Kyrie Irving's a distraction on that roster. And I think my hot take is Steve wanted out just as much as they wanted him out. I would now, if I was I wouldn't want anything to do with that situation. I mean, the whole nest egg that's getting hatched right now in Brooklyn is sour apples to me, and I want to be as far away from that as possible. I think if we tip our hand back to the NFL, interesting slate of games this week. You're getting involved with the Thursday night game pretty early, right? No, you're not. Sorry, looking at your picks wrong here. But you are getting involved with this Bucks game. Good luck betting on the Bucks this week, but I guess it's dealer's choice if you want to bet the Bucks or the Rams. Neither of those teams really, making any hay right now. But you are choosing Tom and Tampa this week. Tell me why.
Yeah, I am. I know it's an ugly pick, hold your nose pick, whatever you want to call it. Listen, maybe I'm holding on to my priors a little too much. I like the Bucks the best in the NFC. Obviously, you get rid of a lot of the prior stuff at this stage. But, it's interesting, guys, because if you look at the Bucks and you really break down the offense, where are they struggling? They're struggling on third down. They're struggling in the red zone. They're struggling in every big spot. It's not like they're not moving the football, okay? They're moving the football. It's weird. Brady always had the biggest clutch bone in the league. Somehow can't get it done when it matters. I got to think there's some positive regression due. I got it at 2.5. If I can get it below the key number, and I go small early in the week, I hammer the hell out of the NBA overnight. But the NFL, I tread a little lighter. You guys know this. The NFL lines are so tight, it's tough. But I do believe if you could get Tampa at 2.5, there's some value there. Now, look, I mean, if they don't get it done, I won't be shocked. But bottom line is I do think there's little value. Don't take anything 3 or more. Obviously, you guys know that. Let's see the Bucks stand up and play well this week, because if they don't, guys, now the conversation really is, how bad is this team exactly? Because I'm still of the mindset they're easily going to win that division. Hey, give Arthur Smith all the credit in the world. Atlanta's exceeded all expectation. If you're betting on Atlanta every week, God bless you. But Tampa's still going to win that division. They still have talent on the roster as they get a little healthier. I think better days are to come.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw this, Tom, but I think the reports are that in the divorce, Giselle got the clutch bone from Tom. So part of the reason why
Which magic is real. I started buying stones and stuff, Tom, because I'm telling you, this stuff is real, bud.
Is that right?
Go ahead, Mark. Make fun of me.
I
had this stone on my desk for like months. It's not because of that.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. Listen, Giselle, she's not a happy woman, but Tommy's dealing with a lot of stuff. Hey, look, I hope everything in the personal life is going fine. It's, but
yeah.
I don't mind seeing St. Tommy Brady struggle on the football field. I'm so sick and tired, and I'm sure you New Yorkers can agree, of St. Tommy and the Pats. And by the way, Bill Belichick, who I also like, by the way, early in the week. But Bill Belichick is 12, 13 games under 500 without Tom Brady. Brady's a great player, but he gets all the breaks. Think about that freaking rough in the passer call against Atlanta. They could be 2-6.
Very easily. Absolutely.
One game on your card that I am absolutely in love with is the Washington Commanders this week. Anytime I see the Vikings minus 3.5, it's like an auto fade for me on Minnesota and Kirk Cousins at this point. But, not only has Washington kind of won 3 in a row and done it in surprising fashion. Now, granted, it's been against bad teams and bad offenses, but still, Taylor Heineke gives this team exactly the shot in the arm that it needs here. And Vikings going road, not a pleasant situation for them.
No, I like to buy low, sell high, guys. As you know, it's part of the equation with Tampa. Minnesota is a good, not great team. They're not as good as that record indicates. My power numbers say as much. We saw them get crushed on Monday night in Philadelphia. So, look, Kirk Cousins is a good player. The problem is you got to allocate so many funds to that position. You're not as good at other positions. I think this Washington team is interesting because typically you downgrade a team when they lose their starting quarterback, not with the Commanders.
Yeah.
And I think the guys in that locker room like playing with Heineke. He's tough.
Yeah.
He's gritty. Again, it's right around a key number. Make sure you get the right side of it. You guys know how important that is. Can't stress it enough. But I'm with you. I like the Commanders. I sprinkled a little bit on the Commanders early week as well. The NFC East overall is a lot better than we thought. The NFC West is not quite as good as we thought. The NFC East is a lot better than we thought. The Eagles are a lot better than I thought they'd be. The Giants, in all seriousness, I know I called them frauds. They're obviously much better than I thought they'd be. Brian Dable's done an outstanding job. And the Cowboys, listen, keep an eye on the Cowboys, man. I'm surprised Jarrah wasn't a little bit more active yesterday. That team has a high ceiling.
Yeah, Dak playing, well, and it looks like that defense is very, very dangerous with the two edge rushers there. So the thing on
Micah
Minnesota
Parsons
is
like a little LT, dare I say.
He's
God,
unbelievable. He's the best player in the league, top to bottom, I think. I think if you were going to ask me, you can pick one player today on the defensive side to start your team with. That's the guy I think I would take.
I can promise you this.
Yeah.
Odds makers are moving lines because of him, and that doesn't happen an awful lot with defensive players.
Yeah, it's really impressive what he's been able to do in just a year plus. So the Vikings have won 5 straight games by 1 score against Detroit, New Orleans, Chicago, Miami without Tua, and Arizona. And let's be honest, that Arizona game on Sunday was on the knife's edge for a long time. So eventually the Minnesota luck train, it seems like the last 2 years of negative variance that they've had in some of these close games, they've all kind of made up for it in the first 8 weeks of this season. I think the second half we'll see a different Minnesota team. Yeah, they're a much better coach team this year. You're right. You're 100% right, Mark. Jets catching a big number here. I'm down on my Jets. So I'm wearing the shirt. This is a very tough spot for them because they don't play their division opponents very well. They've done well against the outside of the division so far this year, and give that Dolphins game a pass because they were facing like 2 different quarterbacks that neither of them could really do anything. But I think overall, when they manage up in class, this is when the Jets really struggle. And you saw it against the Patriots defense on Sunday. I think you're going to see it against this Bills defense, who might be without Jordan Poyer. That's a big injury. But also, the Jets defense will be tested in this game, probably more than they've been all season.
This is simply a numbers play. I'm getting so many points here. Buffalo's great. I had them to win the Super Bowl before the year. I'm obviously not going to get off that now. The only game they lost was the game in Miami in the division. Humid, missing 5 starters on the defensive side, basically their entire secondary. Believe me, I understand how great Buffalo is. I don't love fading them. But this is so many points. And I know people are down on the Jets because they lost in New England. That was my favorite play on the card last week. I loved the New England going into that game.
Me too.
But based on some of the reaction I got from people on Point After my show on Sundays, I guess Jets fans thought they were going to win that game by 5 touchdowns. And so from that standpoint, I'm surprised. They are. But now it seems like the pendulum has swung too much the other side. They're still going to compete. Fair. Robert Sala's got that defense playing well enough. I worry about Zach Wilson. How can you not worry about Zach Wilson? Hell, I'd be a little bit more comfortable if it were Joe Flacco and he's washed.
Tom,
but again, it's just too many points.
What you need to worry about is Zach Wilson turning the ball over in his own, inside his own 20 or a pick 6 that's going to give a free. That's the way Buffalo covers this game. Otherwise, I'm 100% with you. It's way too many points to lay. Divisional dogs have been covering nearly 60% this year. I would absolutely take the points with the Jets, but that's a real concern. After what I saw Zach Wilson do last week in trying to throw a ball away that landed right in the Patriots' defense.
Quarterback in the league under pressure. He's the worst graded quarterback in the league under pressure. It's not even close either.
That's my only concern is that Wilson is going to screw you by doing something stupid and causing a free 7 points for Buffalo. So I agree wholeheartedly. I want to get back to the NBA with you, Tom. I know you got one big play for tonight and want to hear about it and why you're laying the 11 points with the Bucks. Big number.
Yeah, it's a big number. I don't like laying big numbers. Detroit played them tough only a couple of nights ago, but this spread should be closer to 14 and a half. I think Giannis and company come out fresh tonight. They're going to put the clamps down on Cunningham. That's probably another decent play. Take the under 22.5 on the Cunningham points prop. You could take Detroit's team total under. They're competing, but they just don't have the horses. Now, Milwaukee's missing a lot of their small forwards, but that hasn't burnt them at all. Middleton hardly realized he's gone. Joe Ingles, you forget he's even on the Bucks, hasn't been able to suit up yet. But all that said, they're going to blow them out of the water tonight. If you wanted to take the Bucks first half, that would make some sense too. Again, they jumped on them the other night. Now, the number the other night, keep in mind, closed at 13.5. So if you jumped on it overnight, like made 11, I think it might be gone now. You might have to take 11.5, 12 now. I'd have to look at the market movement. I wouldn't go too much higher. They jumped on them the other night. They took their foot off the gas. They won't make that mistake two games in a row. They're going to keep the pedal to the metal tonight. This one has blowout written all over it. Giannis will have an easy time in the paint. They'll bully Detroit a little bit. Lay the number with the Bucks tonight.
I see 111 in the market, but mostly trending towards 11.5. So,
okay, yeah, grab the 11.
Great job, Tom.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Good job, bud.
Tom Byrne of Mad Dog Radio, Wednesday through Saturday and point after on NFL Sundays. Great to talk to you, brother. Thanks for the insight. And, yeah, go Philly. Why not? Sure. Sounds great.
It's hard not to root for them, Mark, honestly. I mean, I don't want to root for the Astros. That's for damn sure.
I don't want to root for the Astros, but Philly is like one of those cities that definitively does not need to win more. Much like Boston, they don't understand, know how to handle wins.
It's a very passionate city. I do respect the passion. Like Boston, it's like, being mad at Bill Belichick for being great. Like, you have to respect the greatness. You have to respect the passion. It is a very passionate sports city, regardless of whether or not we agree with the politics or not.
and I will disagree with him. I never hated Tom Brady's success, not 1 second of it. Now, as a Giants fan, I watched us beat him twice in the Super Bowl, so it never really bothered me from that standpoint.
As a Jets fan, I am tortured by Tom. I'm not one of those fans that dislikes people who are great just for the sake of being great. Yeah. They need to have personality flaws in order for me to dislike them as people. But as football players or as baseball players, I respect greatness. How can you not respect what the Phillies are doing? They haven't lost a game at home in the postseason, and they've got the second best record at home in the postseason in like the last 20 years. Like, they're 22-9 since 2005 in the postseason. I mean, that's remarkable. It's better than almost any other team besides the Kansas City Royals on a much shorter sample. So you've got to respect the Philly vibes. Clearly, are very strong, and it does seem like they're a team of destiny.
So much so that somebody who tweets at 76ers39 tweeted me and said, Philly fans handle winning just as good as any other fan base. Stop the lame, tired, anti-Philly crap. Be better. No, I'm not going to be better, okay? Asking me to be better is setting a very high expectation bar, and we're not going to clear it on this show. All right, let's move on to college football as we got a huge weekend coming up here. College football playoff rankings come out. Georgia not number 1. Georgia not number 2, Georgia number 3, which is weird because if you believe in motivation as something in handicapping, and I do, Georgia probably got a little extra motivation to go out there and not only win, but win big against Tennessee. I'm sure Josh Heupel was sitting there grumbling after seeing not only his team over Georgia, but Georgia wasn't even number 2. Now it's number 3. Oh, crap. So Kirby Smart will absolutely use that for motivation. But all that said, still tough not to take more than a touchdown with Tennessee at this point.
Yeah, so two different lines of thinking here. The ratings that I kind of concoct at this stage of the season has this game Georgia minus 6.9. So, yeah, you're getting some value there with Tennessee. It's not an immense amount of value. You're getting the one – I mean, I guess the key number matters. But, again, the motivational adjustment I think you have to make here based off of that initial ratings release is significant because we have a situation where the number 3 team is over a touchdown favorite against the number 1 team. And what's the public doing right now? Literally in droves. It's like a 9 out of 10 tickets are on Tennessee. And it's just sucking the value right out of this market. Because I'll be honest, I think you can make a case for Georgia to be a double-digit favorite against Tennessee based off of, if the matchups go to where they go.
I wonder if this is the biggest the number 1 team has ever been an underdog in the history of college football.
Probably.
Like, think about it.
It's probably
I would have to.
it's probably a fair assessment to make.
This may be the
But like,
largest
if you think about the matchup, strength versus strength, if Georgia's defense gets the better of the Hendon Hooker, if they figure out a way to slow down Hendon Hooker, this game can get out of hand. Because I think Georgia's offense is underrated. It's been underrated all season. The explosion, the way that they can, kind of dial up the tempo when they need it. They haven't really needed it a whole lot, but I think when they do need it, you saw it in the Natty, you saw it last week, they can be a little explosive. And we've seen Tennessee's defense just crumble at times. Last week, they basically had a bye because Will Levis can't throw the forward pass, and Kentucky's offense it's a bad matchup. I think this is a better matchup this week. They're also at home. And then you throw in that motivational edge. I think it's the worst possible concoction for Tennessee in this game. I think they would have almost rather be a one-loss team losing to Alabama and then be a bigger underdog and to have that motivate. Because Georgia, to me, is like the clear side here. But I agree that it's tough to lay this many points with Tennessee's offense. The back door will likely be open. But I expect Georgia to be very, very ready for this game. Mentally, physically. I mean, this is going to be a spot for them where I think you're going to see their best ball of the year.
I mean, look, there's only 15 teams in the country, okay, that's out of 130 that throw for more than 300 yards or average more than 300 yards of passing offense. Georgia still happens to be one of them. Now, Tennessee's number 2 in the nation, but Georgia's number 8. So, as you said, there's probably a little bit of underrating going on of a Georgia pass offense that is really good against one of the worst pass defenses in the country in Tennessee. And I would argue that Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington are two tougher weapons for anybody to cover.
Bowers going to have Georgia. A huge day.
I mean,
what props can we get on Bowers is the question that I have.
It's going to be interesting to say the least. And these are two very good run defenses too. So let's see how much that plays out in this game. The other thing I'll say as far as a matchup is concerned with this, Jared, is just watch how much Tennessee's front four, which is pretty good. That's why they have such a good run defense. If they can get to Stetson Bennett, the quarterback for Georgia, and make life a little bit difficult. Because even though Tennessee dropped 7 back in coverage, they still suck at covering. Like they're really that's the pathetic part about it, is that they drop guys back in coverage all the time and they still can't cover. But they play this terribly soft zone. It's a mess. Stetson Bennett should have a big day. At the end of the day, Jared, if you had to pick a side, this might not be a game you're going to play, but if you have to pick one, where are you going?
I'd take Georgia. I mean, it's the contrarian. It's like literally the most contrarian play of maybe the year. Especially because right now, again, it's like, and I don't look too much into the public splits. I think in the bigger games, they matter a little bit more. But for the most part, it's just kind of fodder for us to talk about on the shows. But in this particular case, the fact that it's like so prominent, the ratings, they just were released and everyone's all in a fervor about it. It is pretty obvious that Georgia's the quote unquote sharper side here. We'll see how it plays out on Saturday, but I would be surprised if Georgia doesn't win this game.
Another SEC game that sort of has the same feel, at least to me, Jared, is Bama at LSU, night game down in Death Valley. Alabama laying just under 2 touchdowns at 13.5 here. Now, the last time LSU beat Alabama without a guy named Joe Burrow, neither one of us were even old enough to get – well, I was old enough to gamble. You probably weren't. But that said, it's been a really long time. 2011, the 9-6 game that Alabama then returned the favor in the national championship back in the beginning of 2012, back in the BCS days. But 10 out of the last 11 have gone to Alabama, and most of those, Jared, by a pretty significant number. Again, night game in Death Valley, 7 o'clock start. Certainly going to have a very tough crowd to deal with. Alabama's struggled at times on the road this year. So what do we make of the Crimson Tide?
My skincare routine must be hot right now because I must be looking very young. In 2011, I was 25. So I had a little bit of starch to me back then. I'm doing good. It's the desert. It's the desert dryness. It's making my skin glow. No, listen, this is I make this game right now Bama minus 8.2. So I think you're getting some value on LSU, frankly. And I would probably make a wager on LSU here. I think I'm going to get to the window on them at some point this week. We'll see what the market does later in the week. But I agree with the assessment that the road Alabama splits have been a little troubling this year. Most notably, the categories that you would expect them to excel in, like penalties and turnovers and the coaching categories, the mental mistakes, Bama hasn't really gotten to that point yet where they're a polished unit yet. Maybe we'll see it. Maybe this will be the week where they put the full 60 together on the road, but I haven't seen it yet. We saw them struggle at Texas. We saw them struggle at Tennessee. They struggled with a lot of those little things that need to happen in order for you to cover a 2-touchdown spread on the road in Death Valley, which, by the way, according to all the experts, is probably the biggest home field advantage in all of sports. So night game in Death Valley is a really, really big home field advantage. And I do think Alabama might be affected a little bit. If this gets to 2 touchdowns, if it gets to a straight 14, it'll be a bigger wager for me. I think it'll still be a bet for me at 13. I kind of like the LSU upset vibes here. I don't know if they'll pull it off, but I think they'll keep this one close.
Let me tell you one thing that's stuck in my mind on this game that I can't get out. Is the coaching matchup between Nick Saban and Brian Kelly. The last 2 times Alabama played Notre Dame, they won them both convincingly against a Brian Kelly team. Now, Marcus Freeman
different level of talent on those Notre Dame teams than this LSU team. A little bit of a different talent level.
Yes and no, because he only been it's 1 year. Like he hasn't. If this was 2 or 3 years down the road, and he's recruited SEC talent for 2 or 3 years down the road, I might agree with you. If it's one thing I can trust, Nick Saban knows how to shut down Brian Kelly's offense. Period. And that to me is a little bit perplexed. Like if Bama won this game 40-24, would you be shocked? I wouldn't.
No, but I think Jaden Daniels is, I don't want to put him on Hendon Hooker's level, but I think he's a very talented player. And I think he's definitely more talented than who did Notre Dame throw out their quarterback in those 2 games. Like I think there's a little more speed. Yeah. I think there's a little more speed and a little more athleticism on this LSU team than in those Notre Dame teams. And it's still an SEC team. It's still an SEC constructed team. It's still a team that, you still have some, recruiting vibes in that area that were still prevalent even before Brian Kelly came in. And, they've got some really, really top flight players on that LSU team. They haven't come together and played as one, although you could make a case the last few weeks they've played a little better. And the results have certainly indicated that. Do I think LSU is going to be a stone cold money line play in this game? No, I'm not like overly enthused to bet LSU in this game, but my numbers say the line should be a little tighter. And I think it's fair to say that Alabama's underachieved a little bit in tougher environments this year. And that's where the manual adjustment comes in. And the coaching edge is it's impossible to argue that the coaching edge is clearly on Alabama's side here, but I'm not asking them to win this game. This is a monster spread for an Alabama team that has struggled to separate from good teams this year. That's where I think I would be on the LSU side a little bit more.
All right, one more over to the Big 12. Texas on the road at K-State. Longhorns a favorite in Manhattan, Kansas, laying 2.5. And if it's one immutable fact I've learned is never, ever, ever lay points with Steve Sarkisian. So I'll probably pass on this game, but I just don't like Steve Sarkisian as a favorite.
This might surprise you. I actually have Kansas State favored in this game. Now, I think that those numbers are reflecting Adrian Martinez playing quarterback. I think that changes a little bit if it's not. We have been betweened and tomfooleried with the Kansas State quarterback situation over the last couple of weeks. And it's kind of been a recurring theme, the Cameron Rising situation last week for Utah. I mean, it is very difficult to make a wager on a team pre-game day with these types of quarterback, injuries, murkiness, whatever. But I think the wrong team might be favored here. Now, Brad Powers, who's arguably the most respected college football bettor on the planet right now, gave out Texas yesterday. I think that's why we saw a little bit of line movement towards the Longhorns. But it didn't get to 3, and I don't think it will get to 3 because, again, I subscribe to a lot of the similar ratings that most of the other pros do, and I'm assuming they're looking at the same numbers that I am, that Kansas State maybe should be favored in this game. So the quarterback situation, I think, is what's going to keep this market a little murky for the next few days. I think it'll clear up a little bit on Saturday, and I would not be surprised if you saw this line drift back towards Kansas State come Saturday. Just my thoughts. If it gets to 3, I'll be running to the window to bet the Wildcats. And if it doesn't, I'll probably still bet K-State small just because I trust my numbers at this stage with all the data we have. And I don't like fading Texas. I like their defense, but the numbers say K-State maybe should be favored here. And if Adrian Martinez is healthy, I think it's really hard not to make a wager on the Wildcats.
Make sure you guys stay tuned too. Let's Bet It every single day on Pickswise.com for more information throughout the rest of the week on all the biggest college football games. Again, download that Pickswise app and check us out every day on the YouTube channel for Pickswise. Before we get to our plays of the day, I want to remind you guys, Let's Bet It is presented by Superbook Sports. Go to superbook.com or download the app today. And this season, we're all rooting for safeties. That's because Superbook will give you a $8 bonus on each safety scored this season. Just place a $100 pregame bet on any spread or total. And if there's a safety scored in any game, not the game you bet on, any game on Sunday, you get a $50 bonus. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. With that, Jared, before we get to our own plays of the day, let's check out Pickswise.com and see what's on the site for all of our viewers, listeners, and friends.
Yeah, I got some more soccer on the site today. Of course, the Champions League qualifying stages happening this afternoon. Steve Davies checking in with a total between Shakhtar Donetsk and RB Leipzig. Hawks-Knicks total, Philip Tomich checking in as well. So got some NBA, got some soccer on the card for you today over on Pickswise.com.
All right. It is that time where we must lay our souls on the line and our reputations and even our own money on our plays of the day. Jared, get us started.
Yeah, money certainly. Reputation took a hit last night with that Bryce Harper Murphy killer. But never looked a gift horse in the mouth. Same odds tonight on the Murphy, right at around -110, -115. And I think the pitching matchup is a little stronger. First of all, it was really Ranger Suarez that scared me in that first inning last night, and he was fantastic. Today it's Aaron Nola. So that's the Phillies ace, I would say. 28-4 Murphy during the regular season, 3-0 in the postseason, including Game 1 in Houston. From there, he kind of got banged up a little bit. I'll get to that in a second. On the other side, Christian Javier, fantastic. 19-6 Murphy record this year, 11-2 on the road. He's 19-3 to the Murphy on the road since 2019. So he has excelled away from Houston. This is his first game since October 22nd. He's on plenty of rest. You can make an argument that he'll be rusty. You could also make the argument that he'll be rested. We'll see which Javier shows up tonight. He was really good in that game against the Yankees. Shut him out. That was obviously the Astros won every game against the Yankees, but in that particular game, he was very good. Only 9 at-bats against his current Phillies lineup. Basically a fresh look. 7 of those are against Jared Marsh because Marsh used to play for the Angels. He has 2 at-bats against Kyle Schwarber, no hits. Nola's got some run against this current Astros lineup, 67 at-bats, but I would argue that the numbers are a little skewed after Game 1. So he's given up 12 hits in 67 at-bats. 6 of them came in that Game 1. 2 home runs, both of them to Kyle Tucker in that Game 1. So if you remove those, that second and third inning where he kind of got knocked around a little bit, he's been pretty good against this Astros lineup. Tucker homered off him twice. We'll see what adjustments get made. I don't think he's going to face Tucker in the first inning unless that lineup gets pretty deep. And overall, he only gave up 4 hard hit line drives the whole Game 1. So it was just that little cluster in the second and third, really the 2 Tucker at-bats that really sunk him. And I think other than that, he was pretty good. And I think, again, with a total at 7.5, a Murphy at -115, I feel like we're getting a pretty favorable number there considering the 2 pitchers on the mound. So I'll give you the Murphy again tonight. Hopefully it won't be a bottom of the first 2-out home run like it was last night. And we pray that we get 6 outs.
All right, I'm going to try to get cute here, Jared. Inevitably, whenever I try to get cute in gambling, it never works out for me. But let's just try something a little bit different here. We're going to go to an alternate points total in the NBA tonight and look at John Collins as the Hawks take on the Knicks. Now, his over-under is set at 13.5, and it's juiced at -125. So I look to the alternate point total of over 15 points at +106. Here's the thing on John Collins against the New York Knicks. In his career, he's averaging 16.5 points per game. In his last 4 games at MSG, he's averaging 18.5 points per game. In fact, he's gone over 15 in 6 of his last 8 matchups against the New York Knicks. So the chances that this lands on 14, Jared, I'll roll the dice here to take some plus money to go over 15 points with John Collins as the Hawks take on the Knicks at Madison Square Garden in a place where, well, the Knicks, the Hawks kind of like playing a lot.
Yes, they do.
Stayed away from Trae Young.
Bing
I was
bong.
going to go Trae Young here, but found John Collins on an alternate point total that I really liked. Hawks look to bounce back from a bad loss in Toronto as they take on the Knicks. So that'll do it for us on this edition of Let's Bet It, presented by Superbook Sports. Again, download that Pickswise app on the Apple Store or Google Play. Make sure you subscribe to the Pickswise YouTube channel as well. Leave us a comment and a thumbs up there as well. Thanks for joining us here on this Wednesday. Back tomorrow for another edition of Let's Bet It. You guys have a wonderful day. Go cash some tickets. Go get it. Go bet it. Talk to you tomorrow.